Good afternoon. Welcome to the Town of Apex Planning Board meeting. Today's date is April 13th, 2026. I'd like to lead us in, please bow your head in prayer, please. Dear Lord, as we gather our thoughts, steady our emotions, and direct our decisions, help us act with wisdom, fairness, and integrity for the good of Apex and all its people. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, items of information. Do we have any items of info from staff? Diane?
Good afternoon. We do have a couple of items. One is exciting changes are starting on April 18th for Go Apex. We're going to have a new hourly service on Sundays for Route 1. And we're going to have 30-minute frequency Monday through Saturday from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. for Route 1. So that'll be twice as many buses coming by each stop. And then hourly service continues Monday through Saturday from 7 to 10. And the door-to-door service will now be operated by Go Carry, which expands the service for Sunday service. And then the second one is Peak Plan 2055 is well underway. Several of you were able to attend our public forum on March 25th, but for anyone in the audience or anyone who missed the live event, there's information about 5 growth scenarios posted at www.apexnc.org/peak plan. And you can make comments on those scenarios through April 27th. That's all.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, now we will open public comment. If you've not done so already, to your left, you can sign in to speak on any agenda or non-agenda items. The purpose of public comment is to allow public to speak on items that do not appear on this agenda. Any member of the public wishing to comment on public hearing items will be called at the appropriate time later in the agenda. We do ask that all comments be limited to 3 minutes and not be repetitive. If there's a large number of speakers for one particular item, the planning board may ask one individual to speak for the entire group and limit the comments to 9 minutes. Do we have anyone signed up to speak on any non-agenda item tonight? Hello, sir.
I know I'm the first on the agenda, or on the list. Jeff Roach, Peak Engineering and Design. It is public forum tonight, but I am here this evening to discuss new business item number 1. Since it's a new business item, it's not a public forum item. Specifically, I want to address item number 4 in the UDO amendments. It's in reference to the changing of the requirements or standards for the Environmental Advisory Board. At present, the Environmental Advisory Board makes a recommendation to both the Planning Board and the Town Council on zonings related to environmental warm season grasses, invasive species, and so on. There is currently an amendment here tonight that you guys are going to hear from staff under new business that allows the Environmental Advisory Board to not only make a recommendation for environmental conditions that they would like to see implemented, but to also make a zoning recommendation to council based on those same conditions. So if we as engineers or attorneys stand up to present a case and the Environmental Advisory Board does not feel that the commitment from the engineer architect is not strong enough, then they can make a recommendation directly to you guys and the council to deny a rezoning. At present, I don't believe that's how they operate. They simply are an advisory board to the council and planning board. I think it presents a lot of problems. It usurps some of the powers that you guys have. You guys are a very technical board. You review for ordinance items. I am concerned that the Environmental Advisory Board and this UDO amendment will then give more power to the Environmental Advisory Board to make recommendations for approval or denial to council. Whether I agree or disagree with what their motion is, I think the ordinance is very clear of separation of powers between the Planning Board, Environmental Advisory Board as recommendations. So it's just a concern on my part. I don't know if they can do it legislatively. I don't know how it works. I just see it on the agenda tonight. It very much concerns me that EAB will start making recommendations if we don't agree to 27 environmental conditions. So that's all it is. I appreciate you guys listening. Give me a minute and a half or so to speak. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Roach. Okay. And do we have anyone else that would like to speak on any non-agenda item tonight?
No one has signed up.
Hearing none, we will close public comment. And we'll move on to consent item number 1, the minutes from the March 9th, 2026 regular meeting. I know everyone's had an opportunity to review.
I, Sarah, would like to make a motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve from Sarah. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have at it, Daniel.
Second.
Second from Daniel. All that in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Now we'll move into public hearing section. Public hearing has the same 3-minute rule. We will now open item number 1, Ms. June, with public hearing possible motion regarding rezoning case 26CZ01 8905 Castleberry Road.
Good afternoon, Planning Board Chair and Planning Board members. This is located in the northwestern area of town, near Wake County and Chatham County line. So this is south of Castleberry Road, and then Council Drive is along here, which is a private drive. And then here's the, of course, the Chatham County line. This project site was reviewed by Planning Board on December 8th, 2025. And then on page 1 of your staff report states that history. And that was a proposed zone underneath 225CZ11 for low density residential conditional zoning. So going from 2 lots to 4 lots. Planning Board, if you remember, recommended denial, and the project was never before Town Council as the applicant withdrew that project 25CZ11. So then the applicant submitted another application 26CZ01, and that's for a proposed rural residential conditional zoning and going from 2 lots to the 3 lots. For the existing condition, the parcel includes a single family home. You can just barely see it in there. Mature trees, and then there's an existing stream that comes through diagonally. And the larger parcel is 2 acres, and then the smaller parcel down here is 1 acre. So the existing zoning district is Wake County Residential ADW, and then the surrounding area, this is Lake Castleberry at low density conditional zoning, and then Wake County all around for ADW with single family homes. So the proposed zoning district is rural residential conditional zoning. The current land use map is rural density residential. And if rezone is proposed, the 2045 land use map would change to a classification of rural transition residential. The neighborhood meetings were conducted on February 5th, 2026 and March 5th, 2026, and those are attached to your staff report. Wake County Public School indicates that elementary, middle, and high schools within the current assignment area are anticipated to have sufficient capacity for future students. Transportation to schools outside of the current assignment area should be anticipated, and school expansion or construction within the next 5 years may address concerns at the elementary, middle, and high school grade level. So the proposed uses for the zoning district are single family dwelling, accessory apartment, utility, park active, passive, and greenway. And here's a summary of the proposed conditions. Underneath design condition, a maximum of 3 lots. Minimum lot size shall be 35,000 square feet. So average lot size at 42,000 square feet after right-of-way dedication. 40-foot undisturbed type B buffer, landscape buffer along the eastern and southern property line. And then a 6-foot high privacy fence outside that required landscape buffer along the southern property line. and install evergreen trees along the eastern property line, and that would be a type A buffer standards. Covenants shall not restrict the construction of accessory dwelling units, and in addition, condition regarding accessory dwelling units, whether attached or detached, shall be limited to one bedroom, not exceed 1,500 square feet, or 40% of the primary dwelling unit, whichever is less. And then for the transportation infrastructure condition, so the developer shall construct and dedicate an extension of that Castleberry Road from the existing terminus of state maintenance. So at the end, right where Sleepy Valley Road was, go right here, the pavement ends, and then it's just like a rock dirt road. And so they would, as a 22-foot wide public street and a minimum 50-foot wide right-of-way based on Town of Apex rural residential street standards, and also construct a 5-foot wide sidewalk along the project frontage. Developer shall terminate Castleberry Road with a public cul-de-sac. Each lot shall be served by a single driveway, and all driveways shall exclusively access the public street extension of Castleberry Road. And then construction activities shall be restricted to Monday through Saturday, no later than 7 p.m. And then construction vehicles shall not use Sleepy Valley Road to access the properties. They also included 8 environmental conditions. Those are on page 4 of your staff report. Concerning the grasses and the warm seasonal, along with the 220 volt for the garage, and then solar conduits. And then 8 architectural conditions. Some of those are such as garage doors with windows, not to exceed 50% of the total width of the house for the garage. Front porch is minimum 6 feet in depth. And then due to the small area, the project was exempt from going to the EAB, Park and Recreation Advisory Board, and they did not have to deal with affordable housing. So the rule, the proposal of, as far as the zoning and changing to rural transition residential, that classification is defined as a transition between more rural density areas and low density residential areas. So looking at the surrounding area, Lake Castleberry subdivision came in at 1.28 units per acre, and this proposed project is at 1.0. And then east, west, and south, of course, that's a less of a density at 0.5, and then 1 unit per 5 acres. So just to set up, the rural density residential is 1 unit per 5 acres, and then the next step is rural transition residential, that's 1 unit per acre, and then the next one is low density residential, that's up to 3 units per an acre. So planning staff recommends approval of rezoning 26CZ01 as proposed by the applicant. The 2045 land use designates the site as rural density residential classification. The applicant proposes a rezoning to rural residential conditional zoning with a maximum of 3 lots at 1 unit per acre. And if the properties are rezoned as proposed, that 2045 land use map will automatically be amended to rural transition residential. The proposed rezoning to rural residential conditional zoning will provide the flexibility to accommodate 1 additional single-family lot. And the proposed rezoning is reasonable in the public interest because the proposed rezoning will implement stricter environmental conditions than the UDO requires, and will allow single-family lots that are compatible with the surrounding neighborhood character, as it provides a transition between more rural residential areas and that low-density residential areas, which is like Castleberry subdivision. Furthermore, the proposed rezoning requires improvements to Castleberry Road infrastructure from the end of the existing pavement on Castleberry Road to Council Drive. So that would end as a cul-de-sac. And with that, the applicant is here to answer any questions you have.
Thank you, June. Any questions for June?
June, I just want to make sure I got it right. The rural density residential future land use is 1 dwelling unit per 5 acres. Rural transition is 1 dwelling unit per 1 acre. And then low density is up to 3.
Up to
per-
3 units per acre.
Okay.
June, the reason that you did not approve or recommend it in December, but you are now, is because,
Planning staff was stating that they needed to come in as a lower density, because at that point, they were underneath low-density residential for the land use. So they essentially take 2 jumps from where they are now, and this is just 1 at a higher rate,
okay,
at 1 unit per acre.
okay, so, and because the properties that are there are 1 house per 5 acres right now, or thereabouts, is that?
That's the classification. There's a couple of them that are lower than 5 acres, but,
Okay,
you know, that just goes with it.
okay, great, thank you.
Was there any, we got some emails from residents, the ones that have the ag business, tourism business, and they had a request about how the traffic might come in if this was approved. Did you guys take a look at that request? And is that, I couldn't tell from this which way the traffic would come in and if that would impact the business, and I know they have animals and things. I just wanted to understand.
Yeah, that would, like I said, the pavement stops about right here, if I'm correct. And then it turns into a dirt road. And then as far as the conditions, a cul-de-sac would be put in right here so people can access their lots and then go back out. So when we went out there to look at the site, it falls off a pretty good grade. Not sure if anybody even uses that Council Drive, so that's why we were just gonna end it right there.
And they would just pull straight in this way? Is that how it would be?
Yes, like
So they're
the
not
lots-
turning in towards the other property?
The lots, and the applicant might be able to speak to that, but they are coming straight down like this, so.
Okay.
That was a condition, wasn't it? All driveways have to come off of Castleberry.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, June. Would the applicant like to speak?
Good afternoon. Will Norton, Jones Canawson Engineering, 221 North 7th Street. Thank you, June, and planning staff for all the help and continuous massaging and working for this rezoning case. Obviously, she kind of laid the land for what it was before and what it has evolved over time, and so appreciate all the work that she's done with that. Trips out to the site and whatnot. Really trying to bring the best case forward for this and taking what y'all said last time into consideration and then bringing that into this case now. So I feel like we've done that, and with staff's help, it's been one of those things where kind of all parties involved lead to hopefully a really good outcome here. But just wanted to highlight a few of those things, and June kind of hit the nail on the head with most of this. But the low density, the rural residential going to the 1 unit per acre maximum, and we have 2 lots of record, so just adding that third lot would be the maximum here. There were some concerns from an accessory dwelling unit standpoint from residential neighbors not wanting to have an unlimited size and unrestricted to some extent from a ADU, so that's where that kind of condition got formulated from. And so that also kind of comes from the housing department here, where affordable housing is obviously a point of emphasis here in Apex now, and so they want to see that condition. And so this being able to provide that, but also kind of meet in the middle is one thing that we added into this case. increasing the buffer from 20 to 40 feet as previous to this one has been hopefully, shows our willingness to work with the surrounding neighbors and as well as the type A evergreens and the fence. So not building Council Drive, I know the impervious out in this area, June mentioned, is about a 17 or 18 foot wide gravel road from the end of Castleberry to get access to this property. We were showing, the extension of Castleberry as well as Council Drive. And so limiting that to end in a cul-de-sac right at the pump station, I think is beneficial, not only for the restriction of impervious and limiting that to only what's really necessary to access the site, but the pump station right across the street, the few times that I've driven out to the site, generally speaking, there's always a Town Apex truck that's coming out there at some point in time to look at the pump station. So kind of helping that gravel road get brought up to standards from the Town Apex road standards, even though in this rural residential area, I think will be helpful, and they have a concrete driveway and drainage tile out there. So that I really think that is, again, kind of trying to meet in the middle there. So just wanted to highlight a few of those things. Happy to answer any questions, but hope that we can find some common ground here, and that's what this is all about. So thank y'all.
Thank you, Will.
Could you please share with us a little bit more about the pump station? Because I know that we have received letters from residents who are concerned about the capacity, and I saw a blurb saying that you covered it with them, but I just wanted to hear it from you.
Yeah, no problem.
What those concerns are and how.
Sure. So the pump station was put into place with the Lake Castleberry subdivision, and per my kind of meetings and emails with Jonathan Jacobs, who's the utilities director, now he has assured me and looked at the data and everything. There's no issue with this amount of the 4 lots that were proposed before. There was no issue at all, and it has to do with the peaking factor of the pump station design, being able to allow more capacity. So they can't say exactly how much capacity there is, but he assured me there is plenty of sufficient capacity for this as proposed, and into the future have no issues as far as maintenance goes. So, yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Will. At this point, we will open public comment for this rezoning.
Did anybody else want to sign up?
Okay, this is Christina McAlliston. Thank you.
Good afternoon. In front of you, you guys probably all have pamphlets, so you can read along as I do my 3-minute spiel. You've got pictures in there if you're more visual, and then you have a summary list of our conditions, but also like the extended conditions that we're just hoping can have ears to fall on. So good afternoon, my name is Christina McAllister. I live adjacent to the proposed rezoning application 26CZ01 Castleberry Road. I would like my comments tonight to be understood as a request for your help in protecting our home and our farm through meaningful conditions included as part of this rezoning. I previously emailed a list of requested conditions for your consideration. I also want to be clear that we continue to support this land remaining rural residential, at approximately 1 house per 2 acres. As the adjacent property owner, I want to share what we have at 8901 Castleberry Road. It is more than a residence. It is an active farm, agritourism property, and educational space that has served Apex and Wake County families for more than 12 years. We invite the public onto our land for farm tours, youth camps, agricultural education, horse experiences, volunteer opportunities, and hands-on learning about animals and local food systems. Because of that special use, we're asking for the conditions that maintain a true rural edge between our property and future homes. We are requesting larger buffers at a minimum of 100 feet, along with a stronger type A buffer, double rows of evergreen trees, privacy fencing, and building orientation that places garages, driveways, lighting, and outdoor activity away from the rural property, such as our pastures and bedroom windows. We're also concerned about additional traffic and safety for our guests and animals regarding the potential future construction vehicles and future neighborhood traffic using our private circular driveway. For that reason, we have requested the developer participation in entrance and exit gates for our property. Most importantly, we asked that future homeowners be informed through record deed notices that are moving next to an active agriculture education farm operation that includes livestock, animals, sounds, smells, farm equipment, and youth programming, that these activities should not be considered a nuisance. A huge concern for us is not only the impact construction will have on our daily lives, but also the true effect it will have on our horses and other animals, and the farm business that we have worked so hard to build. My request is simple: please leave the zoning as rural residential, because that is what fits this area best. However, if the zoning moves forward, I respectfully ask that meaningful conditions be incorporated to maintain the rural character of this area, protect adjacent agricultural uses, and preserve what makes this part of Apex special. I also respectfully ask planning, staff, board, town council to help guide me through the condition process and how residential protection conditions can be incorporated before any potential rezoning approval. I'm trying my best to understand, navigate the process, and I hope you can appreciate the effort I've put into learning, participating, and advocating for a home farming community. I'm not a developer who works on these processes every month, so I really truly appreciate your patience, guidance, and willingness to help, and reading all the emails we send. Thank you very much for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Right.
So do you live, is your property the one directly to the left?
We
on
are.
Castleberry?
We're on the eastern side.
Okay, so in between this and Sleepy Valley, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions?
If anybody had questions earlier about how, I think Christy, you may have asked about how the traffic mitigation may happen. Our house is right there on the corner. If you flip to page 2 or 3, there's a picture of like the entrance. I try to, it's kind of hard to see, but there's red arrows that kind of show and kind of circled some trees that would get cut down for right-of-way and the 5-foot sidewalk. Those are basically our buffer trees for the other development that was built. But you might be able to see the 2 entrances that we have. So as we enter and exit, we basically would be stopping to the ongoing traffic in and out of this proposed development. And it's very easy when residents or guests come to visit the property. They're trying to go down Sleepy Valley for another event, and oftentimes we get cars coming through. The issue that we have with cars coming through is we often have young children, youth riding horses. So if you're coming in at like a quick speed of 10, 15, 20 miles per hour in our circular drive and a kid's on a horse, woo, you know, granted we've got really great horses, you know, trail horses, all that, but it's not safe. Oftentimes our goats are out, our pigs are out, and the kids get to run around and play with them. And so if a car's coming in at a fast pace, most people aren't expecting 10 kids playing in the driveway. But that's what we have. We have nature, hammocks. You're supposed to be outside. That's what we encourage. So the likelihood of a car coming through not knowing what they're driving into is a real safety concern.
Okay.
Thank you. Any questions? I'm happy to answer anything. Yep.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you for your time.
All right, we don't have anyone else signed up for this rezoning, so hearing that, I will close public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion.
Well, I'll start off a little bit. Will, was there any discussion to address the light pollution and arrangement of the garages and whatnot?
Yes, I mean, at this time, you know, from a rezoning standpoint, we can generally talk about, you know, where the lots are going to be and the general orientation, you know, driveways coming out to Castleberry Road. So, you know, the first lot that would be closest to that eastern property line, there was a request to mandate that the garage be put on the western side. And at this point in the rezoning case, we didn't feel comfortable doing that. Kind of a couple of reasons, but the main source of that being that the lot does have a general grade from east to west, and generally speaking, housing orientation and where that the driveway normally sits on the high side of the road for drainage purposes and other factors that relate to that. You know, there's a 40-foot type B buffer as well as a 10-foot now, or not 10-foot, but a row of evergreen trees at a type A buffer standard. So that's sort of our mitigation that I would kind of lean towards as kind of protecting that. This isn't going to be a large development scale neighborhood. It's 3 houses that front on the road, so any light structure would more than likely just be any house mounted stuff. So I've relayed that to the owners, the 2 families, and I feel like at this point, from a rezoning standpoint, that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at as far as that topic goes. But yeah.
I have a couple thoughts, if I could open it up, and love your input as well. So I'm pretty familiar with this area. It used to be the Acres Flower Farm, and they had a program where we could walk over there. We can't really drive there because it's a very, I want to say, idyllic, bucolic, picturesque road, and it's got a very old Apex charm to it. And you see horses trot on Castleberry Road, the main road. To my knowledge, there's a couple of farms there, not just yours, right? There's the Clover Farm, the vineyard, and then there's a big farm where the Great Pyrenees dogs, they roam on the street. So until recently, this Castleberry Road got painted. So this Sleepy Valley, the whole community, it's got its own charm where kind of you want to, it's like I want to keep it, that way, that piece of old Apex. And I feel like, yes, Lake Castleberry is a big HOA community that's adjacent to it, but it's separate. It's totally separate. It's a cookie cutter community, and Sleepy Valley is like old Apex. So I understand staff recommended to deny the past one, and that had 4 houses on it, and this one, the proposal is 3 houses on the parcel lot, so not maximum 3. Okay. And also, the past meeting minutes, one of the denial reasons was it didn't really fit, and it wasn't consistent with the land use map. So I am leaning towards voting no to this because just to keep that charm. And I feel like my concern, there's a disturbance concern with all the farm animals there, not just yours, but all the other multiple farms. But have you driven over there?
Well,
yeah. Yeah, walked over. Yeah. So yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Those are my comments, my thoughts.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sarah. Anyone else?
I am supportive of farms in Apex because they are disappearing, and this is a teaching and learning farm. Like, we are teaching our young children who hopefully someday will be ag science majors or horticulturists, or like, this is like where they need to be. We have this community. I mean, you're a high school student, like, this is a resource right here in Apex. I'm so sad that we're even considering doing anything that might somehow negatively affect that. And I feel like we got to keep what we can in terms of helping our youth. This is our community, and yes, it's separate, but there will be some negative ramifications that are associated if we're building right there, and I'm just sad about that. Juanita, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I actually live in Lake Castleberry.
Oh.
So I live on Grapevine Drive, and one of my favorite things is to walk around, and I see the other, I'm not really sure what it's called, but the other farm that's like adjacent to it, and it's like really beautiful, and there's so like the vineyard and the grapes are so beautiful, and the horses are amazing as well. So I would really like to keep the farm as well.
Thank you.
To be clear, this isn't a proposal to get rid of any farm.
Correct.
Correct. It is.
No, I mean, just in general, you know, I living off of South Salem Street, we've seen farmland turn into housing development, so very, very familiar with that. As a other thought, is there any consideration that the proposed road improvements along Castleberry would actually be a benefit in potentially deferring traffic from turning around on Sleepy Valley and support any kind of agritourism traffic that's headed that way? Just a thought.
So Castleberry Road, the asphalt just stops.
Right.
And the gravel starts. And that's where Sleepy Valley community begins. And I don't know how many houses there are in that, but it's like a whole wooded area towards the back, right? More than a dozen homes to my knowledge. I don't know, someone could confirm that. So I'm not sure if it'll benefit just extending a couple feet for that, you know, roundabout. Because gravel will start again, you know, unless they.
But a cul-de-sac.
Yeah, I think the proposal is a cul-de-sac.
And extend the sidewalk.
Right.
But the impact is also the widening too, and that's going to take away from the character of the area. It's got to be considered as well.
I mean, I think the reason that we denied it last time was because it wasn't keeping in with rural residential, and obviously they're requesting a rezoning of that, but there are so few places that are this way, and it does appear to be a special community, and I feel like we were touched by that last time when we had so many people that came up and just spoke so passionately about this area, and if this is something that we could preserve without having an impact right next to that. And I know it's fewer houses, and you said up to 3, right? Not up to 3, yeah, but
no, I get that.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, well, other people want to enjoy that too, right? They want to be part of the community. So I get it.
So I have a question. I remember someone saying something about the watershed on that lot being close vicinity to Jordan Lake. Does anyone have any knowledge?
Yeah, that was discussed at the last time this came up in December, and it was a concern, but I don't have my notes from that one, but that was addressed. Do you remember? Yeah, that'd be great, because I can't remember exactly what was said.
Sure. So the core land is roughly it's more than 900 feet south of the southern property line. I believe that's about right. But so that's kind of where we, from a buffer standpoint and kind of other developments that have been approved on Castleberry Road, we had that like 450-foot buffer that was mainly requested, and we're beyond that length. And so that's why there was nothing really additionally considered beyond that. It is in the watershed protected of Wake County as far as the zoning currently. There isn't a stream on site. There isn't anything that, it just directly flows to the northwest, actually, another area of that Army Corps land that kind of extends up that direction. But yeah, generally speaking, though, it's not in that area or as close in that proximity where some of those other types of conditions that you've seen in the past would come into play, as far as I know. So
I have a question. If you were, hypothetically, if you went from 3 down to 2, are you still going to do the cul-de-sac and the paving?
no, there's two lots of record currently. So
You would just leave it alone? Because my question is,
they would probably build 2
if
houses.
everybody's upset about the one more house, or is it really all the things that are coming with the house? That's what I'm trying to understand, because it seems silly to say no to 3 versus 2 if he was still gonna come out and do all the paving and get rid of all the things. But if what the request is to try to keep it looking more like it is now, and that would be if it was still 2 versus 3, that's what I was trying to understand.
So take it to 1 unit.
It makes
per
no
1.5
sense to me if there's still gonna be the paving and all the things done to go down 1 unit, because that just seems silly. It seems like most of the things, right, but if it was going to stay gravel, then I kind of see the point. I guess that's where I'm at.
So with this being a rezoning case for the town of Apex and it would be annexed into the town of Apex, we have to have road frontage that brings us to our site here. And that has to be up to a minimum standard, which has been a condition that we've worked through. So it's as minimal as it could possibly be for a public road. The right-of-way is already public. Castleberry Road is already public right-of-way. It's never been accepted for maintenance because the infrastructure was never put in. And so that's what's brought us here today, is if it's going to be a rezoning in the town of Apex, which we hope, and it would be annexed into the town of Apex with Apex sewer and water directly adjacent to us, we have to have that public road, and it's to the minimum standard based on the rural residential context. So that's what we're stuck with. I mean, and the trees, Russell's here if you want to ask him, but as far as the public right-of-way goes, Apex would not allow trees to be within their public right-of-way once they accept it for maintenance. So that's kind of the boundary that we're working within here. Trying to think if there's any.
Infrastructure, sorry, if you
Sure.
mention infrastructure, does that include street lighting as well? Because right now, currently, Castleberry Road, it doesn't have any street lights.
That would be a town of Apex decision as far as if you would implement street lighting in that context in their street section.
Does Wimberley even have street lights?
I don't think it does.
I know it's NCDOT, but even Castleberry Road is NCDOT, isn't it?
Well, those are state roads anyway.
Up to that point, correct.
This would be changing.
So kind of to just follow back up on what you were alluding to, there's 2 lots of record there, so there would really be no use in going through with a rezoning and annexation
So it would just stay in Wake. It would not be part of Apex or whatever.
probably, but I would assume there would still be home construction.
And if that was happening, we wouldn't have a say in what the road was or was not, because that would be wouldn't be annexed in.
Are there currently existing houses on the other lot? Or
No, the existing structure is only on the lot to the north. It was one owner with 2 lots of record. Yeah. So yeah, the only habitable structure is on the larger 2-acre piece. The 1-acre piece is somewhat cleared, but yeah.
and that's the southern portion of the.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as, because I remember you said about elevation change, how significant is that change? And so I'm trying to figure out how developable that site is, or if a lot of dirt has to come in, or like, grading or.
Sure. This would not be like a mass graded. These houses would be on crawl space foundations and would work with kind of what was there. So that's kind of another thing that, from a rezoning standpoint, it's kind of tough to portray. But yeah, it wouldn't be clear cutted and mass graded by any means. So just based on the nature of it.
From a standpoint, if you stayed within the county, with a Souls perk where you can do accessory structures or no?
Not sure. Have not explored that because there was an existing septic system. So to some degree, I could say yes. But to what limitations that kind of brings in, I'm not really sure. So as far as bedroom capacities and whatnot, but with the pump station being directly across the street, our hope was that that would never be an issue, but that's obviously a decision that is yet to be made. So, yeah.
I didn't speak, but could I ask a question?
Public speaking is closed at the moment.
Excuse me?
Public speaking has been closed. I apologize. Any questions for Will? Any more questions for Will? Okay, board.
So these,
So we're difference between 2 and 3 lots. And
the conditions that are
sorry?
listed, the conditions that are all listed in here. I mean, obviously, it's been said that it would be preferred to keep it rural residential, but I think this was really smart to write this down, so there's kind of some accountability to go along with it. I am going to vote against this, but if you all are voting for it, there's 18. So that, I think that those need to really be considered. So, because that's kind of what the conversation has been, and there's been the neighborhood meetings and such, and I know Will had said, like, can't really say where the lighting's gonna be, right? Or like but some of these things are important for moving forward with this if we're trying to keep the idea of rural residential, even if we're moving to rural transitional residential, to try to maintain some semblance of that. So I feel like if these are the neighbors' conditions, or have these been agreed upon by the developer, I really think that's important for you all to know. If you're saying, I say yes to this, but with the conditions, is it all of these conditions? Is it some of them? How are you guys going to go about that? Again, I'm not voting for it, so.
Okie doke. Anyone else like to speak? Comments?
I think what I'm struggling with is respect for the property owner who owns the land now. Trying to understand what it was that this town wanted to maintain, like that rural character and stuff, and respect for the existing homeowners too. And that's the part that is hard for me. I don't like a town telling landowners what to do with their land, generally speaking. I like to respect people who've come forward without telling people they can't come in. And so that's part of what I'm trying to understand is, did the town leave this like that because they wanted? Was the intent that they wanted that to always remain gravel? And so when you're saying, oh, well, we get to complete the road to the end over to the lift station, was that not important to the town, right? Like, was that not considered? So those are the things that are in my head as I'm going through. And I think some of these are probably reasonable. Some of them maybe not so much. I think some of them are reasonable. If they were to go through with it, I think anything to do with noise, lights, for example, I think that there is a way to mitigate that. So I think there might be a good compromise here. I'm just struggling to work that in. Those are my thoughts.
If I'm not mistaken, I believe it was, they were jumping up from 5-acre lots to low density, which is allowable up to 3 acres a lot. That was the last case in December. Is that right, Gene? I believe that was the
1.4 units per acre.
Roughly 1.33.
Yeah, okay. And then they come back this time with just one step up. But kind of the same argument. I got what you're saying.
That seems like not the issue, really. It doesn't seem like it's the number. It seems like how it's treating everything around it.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at. It's like, I don't think it's the big deal to go from 4 to 3 or 3 to 2. It sounds like the issue is all the other things, and that's what matters to everybody. I don't think I helped anything there, but I'm just saying that's where I'm at. Sorry.
Any more discussion?
I guess I'll jump in just a little bit. I'm a little bit torn as well, but I plan on voting no. In part, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent. I've got 5 horses, 2 cows in Southeast. And the thing that does terrify me is development that comes around me. I've done some inroads to protect myself from that, but I do understand. And one of the biggest things I've got is the concern I've got about is the light. Is that to me is the biggest concern I've got, is the light issue. But I would encourage the developer and the neighbors, you know, especially Ms. McAllister and her family, I would encourage them to meet some more and have discussions about this. Because Ms. McAllister, the problem becomes somebody can come in right now and put a 3-story building on your property line in Wake County. They can come 10 feet inside the property line, and you have no protection over what might happen. Diagonally across from me, I've got Amgen, so that's all I know. And so, you know, that to me is the biggest thing, is that it doesn't seem like there was enough consideration by the developers for the neighbors to address a fair amount of their concerns.
Understood. And some being addressed, the 20 to 40 foot. I think the neighbors were requesting 100 foot. They did move, and I believe they agreed on a fence and some evergreen trees, but not exactly met in the middle. Yeah, Everybody's not agreeable. I shouldn't say meet in the middle. They're not agreeable. But they have made some efforts, is what I'm saying. But the light, I can see what you're saying. Like if they were just floodlights on the side of the house, would be different from a pole light.
Sensor, right?
That's
Yeah.
right.
Or a pole light, maybe.
Mm-hmm. How does that affect the animals? And I think that's probably where but he is right. You could be, they leave it like it is and they can just come in and do it. So I think it would behoove both parties,
That's right.
right? To try to come together
that's
and
why
say, how can we, and a little bit more here and a little bit less there, right? And maybe y'all can get there. And I don't know what to say about the road, because it sounds like that's Apex requirement. That's not him wanting to do that. That's what we're saying. If you're going to come in, you got to do this. And so.
And the truth of the matter is, the right of way is what the right of way is. So it's not, you know, again, they had a gas line come down, and I'm getting ready to lose everything to the east of me due to a sewer line running. But that, I've accepted it, and
Right.
I've dealt with the town, you know, how I needed to do with it. So I'd like more communication between, I'd like to see more of what I perceive as communication between the neighbors and the developers.
And I get it. I do understand. You probably feel like you have. And it can be that the answer is like no, right? And the answer is just no. And if that's the answer is no, then you just need to understand that what he's saying can actually, no matter what we do, that can still impact you to the negative, right? Like ADU units, that's something that's important to the town. Might be beneficial to the business. I don't know. I mean, I could see that. So I do think there probably needs to be a little bit of more give. I would like to see it just for everyone's sake. So for the existing homeowners who would like to do something with their land that's important to them, and for the existing homeowners who have their land and their history there, I really want to see that. Split the baby, I guess.
Yeah. And maybe going from 2 lots to 3 lots is not the worst thing that can happen, as you desire. But today, we have to make a decision.
Yes, we do.
Yep. So, any motions? Discussion?
Well, here in the silence, I'll go ahead and throw one out there. I make a motion to decline rezoning case 26 CZ01 8905 Casper Road.
I could second that motion.
We have a first, we have a second.
Sarah.
Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All that oppose? Aye. I'm no.
I know.
Motion passes?
I think it was 3. Were you a no,
I
Christie?
was a no, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was
Okay.
in agreement with the, I'm sorry. I was struggling to the very end.
who recommended denial, raise your hand, please? 6 to 2.
All right, motion passes.
For those who voted against the motion to fill out your form on your laptop.
Sure.
Yes, ma'am.
Excellent. Okay, with that, we will move on to item 2. Public hearing, possible motion regarding rezoning case.
Sorry, just as we did the last time, we have to go through all of the legislative considerations
Oh, great.
and state why why the board is recommending denial.
Okay.
So the first is consistency with the land use map.
No.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, it's not consistent.
Okay. The next is compatibility, the zoning's appropriateness for its proposed location and compatibility with the character surrounding land uses.
No.
No, no.
We have to give specific reasons for just saying consistent.
I mean, the town council likes to hear reasons, so if you have a reason, you can mention it. If not,
It just seems weird because we just did this in December. We all agreed that going from 4, I just don't see how we're changing our mind going from 4 to 3. And so I would enumerate the character of the community and the fact that we put that overlay in place to keep it that way for a reason. And it just doesn't seem enough of a reason to go against it. There's enough good. It seems like there's a little bit more on the negative side for the existing residents on compatibility. And I wouldn't call it environmental impact, but those are the ones that I was looking at. Adverse impact number 4.
That it does not, well, let's go through all of them. So number 2 is inconsistent with compatibility. Number 3, there are no supplemental standards for single family, so there's nothing to be inconsistent with.
Right.
you can just write not applicable.
All right, number 4 is design that minimizes adverse impact, avoidance of significant adverse impacts on surrounding lands regarding trash, traffic, service delivery, parking and loading, odors, noise, glare, and vibration, and not create a nuisance.
I think, Christy, didn't we have trouble with this last time?
We
with the
did, because
phrasing?
I'm stating a negative.
What you're
so
saying is hard for us to give a negative because of the way that it's phrased.
did.
And I think we had to discuss this last time.
If the use doesn't minimize adverse impacts, if the zoning does not minimize the adverse impacts, then this would be inconsistent.
This is inconsistent because I'm going with the glare, like the lighting that they were talking about specifically is what I'm saying. That what he's proposing does not minimize that currently.
Okay.
I don't think
Number 5 is design minimizes environmental impact. Whether it minimizes environmental impacts and protection from significant deterioration of water and air resources, wildlife habitat, scenic resources, and other natural resources.
I think it does minimize that
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
It does minimize that one, yes.
I agree with that.
Okay. Number 6 is the impact on public facilities. The zoning's avoidance of having adverse impacts on public facilities and services, including roads, potable water and wastewater facilities, parks, schools, police, fire, and EMS facilities.
This is your perspective, right? I mean, I would say that probably the current residents say that they like the road the way it is, and that we're saying that we need it to, that's where I'm kind of torn. I think we're supposed to represent the residents' perspective on this, so I would say that has a negative impact on the road, right? If we're I know we're upgrading it, but
Right.
you see what I'm saying? That's the whole part of the.
Yes, because we're taking it from gravel, putting in the cul-de-sac, so that
Just
would be
a suggestion that maybe the improvements to the road might be, if you look at number 8.
Improvements to the road may adversely impact
Adjacent properties, yeah,
Adjacent
okay, I see what you're saying.
properties.
So maybe
So
leave.
for number 6, impact on public
Yeah.
facilities, you would say that's consistent or inconsistent?
I would say it's consistent as it sits.
Okay. Number 7 is health, safety, and welfare. The proposal's effect on the health, safety, or welfare of the residents of the town or its ETJ.
I think it
Consistent. With small number of housing.
Okay, number 8 is detrimental to adjacent properties, whether it's substantially detrimental to adjacent properties.
Yes, because of the road.
Yes, because of the animals.
Right.
I don't know, I'm an animal lover.
I just think they have a business and they're there first. I just feel like we just have to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
I think anybody coming in needs to be respectful of that. So I think that is detrimental to the property. I don't like this. I really want to fight with this really hard.
Yeah.
Sorry. I think that design is detrimental to adjacent properties.
I do too.
Okay.
I agree.
I did graduate college, I swear. It does not look like it right now, but I swear I did.
We didn't have ChatGPT.
Well, I don't.
Well, the way these are phrased, and these are based in state law. Okay, number 9 is not constitute nuisance or hazard, whether the rezoning constitutes a nuisance or hazard due to traffic impact or noise, or because of the number of persons who will be using the use.
So it does constitute a hazard, therefore number 9 is
Yes.
compliant?
The design does not constitute a nuisance or a hazard. I would disagree. I think it does.
It does cause
impact.
that, so-
Right? Is that how? Am I saying it right now?
Yes, you're saying it correctly.
On the struggle bus.
Oh my God, only one more. Okay, all right.
Okay, other relevant standards of the ordinance. The proposal complies with all standards imposed on it by other applicable provisions of the ordinance for use, layout, and general development characteristics.
It did comply.
Yeah, also, in and of itself, it is compliant.
It is compliant. The design is compliant with what we're asking, yes.
Good.
Okay.
I would like to go on the record and state that I think the reason this is worded this way is to inhibit us from talking about it. I'm saying it kind of jokingly, but I'm not.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Okay,
Trying to bring levity to the situation.
Thank you very much.
The disagreement to the vote was Alyssa and Keith?
Yes. All right, great. Now we will move on, thank goodness, to item number 2, public hearing and possible motion regarding case 25 CZ 21 2728 Holland Road.
Good evening. Elise Beelan, Senior Planner with the Town of Apex. Here to present rezoning case 25 CZ 21 2728 Holland Road, or the Teeter property. This property is located in the southwest portion of Apex's planning jurisdiction. It's approximately 3/4 of a mile north of Old US Highway 1 on the west side of Holland Road. This property is in the ETJ and consists of approximately 10.35 acres. The current zoning of the property is rural residential, as seen here. The parcel immediately to the south, known as the Hartley property, is also rural residential, as are the single-family residential parcels on the east side of Holland Road. Holland Farm and Bella Casa subdivisions to the north, west, and farther south are all zoned medium-density residential. The applicant proposes to rezone the property to medium-density residential conditional zoning. The 2045 future land use map classifies this property as medium-density residential, and the proposed rezoning to medium-density conditional zoning is generally consistent with this classification. The property to be rezoned is fully wooded with mature trees. A stream runs along the majority of the western border of the property, and also from the northwestern corner down to the kind of middle of the southern boundary of the property. The applicant conducted 2 neighborhood meetings, one on November 26th, 2025, and the other on March 4th, 2026. Both neighborhood meeting reports are attached in your packet. A letter of impact from Wake County Public School System was received for this rezoning and is also included in your staff report packet. Wake County Public Schools indicates that schools at the middle school grade level within the current assignment area for the proposed rezoning are anticipated to have insufficient capacity for future students, and transportation to schools outside the current assignment area should be anticipated. Wake County Public Schools indicates that school expansion or construction or reassignment within the next 5 years may address these concerns at the middle school grade levels. I'd like to highlight a few of the proposed conditions for this rezoning. Number one, the number of lots on this parcel would be limited to 13. Due to the environmental constraints on this lot, in large part due to the stream and its buffers, they're limited in space. So 13 lots on this area puts the proposed density at an average lot size of about 1.3 dwelling units per acre, which is actually more comparable to a low density residential district, as we've discussed. Number two, the applicant is proposing a minimum 65-foot lot width for all the residences that are not on a cul-de-sac. This was asked for in order to ensure compatibility with the development pattern directly to the north in Holland Farm. Number three, the applicant is offering 35% resource conservation area plus an additional 5% if it's mass graded. This exceeds what would be required in the UDO, which would be 30%. Number 17, the applicant is offering 2 new street stubs to the parcel to the south, which is the Hartley property. These street stubs were requested specifically by town staff to facilitate future connections to and through the Hartley property should that parcel develop in the future. The intent is for 1 stub to be located on each side of the stream as it comes down. Sorry, let me go to this for you to see. To prevent the need to cross the stream or impact those existing ponds in the future with an additional crossing, so that the eastern portion of the Hartley property could be developed with a connection of its own stub, and also without creating an additional access point along Holland Road, which is a major thoroughfare. Number 20, a secondary access point would not be required at the time of build out due to an inability to add an access point to Holland Road. This condition goes hand in hand with the addition of street stops as offered in condition 17. Both the property subject to this rezoning and the Hartley property to the south face a restriction in terms of distance between entrances to Holland. We have a curve right here, and there's 850 feet between the nearest entrances, or the nearest full movement accesses. So, and as you can see, the majority of the frontage between those 2 accesses is with the Hartley property, so they wouldn't be able to get an access far enough away from the existing one at Old Byre Way. So setting up a connection between the existing stub streets, one to the north on Steeplechase Bend, and then in the future a connection to Pretorio Place here to the south coming out of Bella Casa, is considered the most appropriate opportunity to develop this property and potentially the Hartley property in the future. Of note, without this rezoning, the owner of the subject property could choose to develop up to 3 homes under an exempt site plan, which would not require those street stub connections, and could erase the opportunity for that logical connection from subdivision to subdivision there. And also, Holland Farm, which currently does not have a secondary access, would lose their opportunity to have this connection made in the relatively near future, depending on what happens with the Hartley property, and get their secondary access point, which would be in line with the current UDO. And then number 22, off-site sidewalk was requested and is offered for this short piece here, along with what is HOA-owned property for Holland Farm, just to make sure that any sidewalk that is built along the frontage of the Teeter property is connected into the sidewalk network within Holland Farm, and you're not getting an awkward gap there. The applicant has offered $50,000 to the Town of Apex Affordable Housing Fund. Town housing staff, while recognizing this effort, have indicated that they are not in support of this condition as offered, as it is not consistent with the town's adopted affordable housing incentive zoning policy. The request in accordance with that policy is for 10% of the total proposed dwelling units, in this case one single-family home, to be either provided as affordable housing or that a sum of $218,000 be provided as an in lieu payment by the applicant. And the Apex Environmental Advisory Board, the EAB, held a meeting for this rezoning on February 19th, 2026. 4 of the 7 conditions recommended by the EAB were accepted or offered as an amendment by the applicant. The table of EAB recommended conditions is included in your packet. Planning staff recommends the approval of rezoning 25CZ21 with the conditions as offered by the applicant. The 2045 land use map classifies the subject property as medium density residential. The proposed rezoning to medium density residential conditional zoning, MDCZ, is generally consistent with that land use classification. The proposed rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest, as the proposed density, uses, and architectural conditions are consistent with the adjacent developments to the north, west, and south, and requires more resource conservation area than required by the UDO. In addition, the proposed rezoning provides more street connections to the south than would be required by the UDO to support future neighborhood connectivity without the addition of another public street connection on Holland Road, which is a major thoroughfare. Finally, a condition is offered to extend and connect the pedestrian network to the north along the frontage of the Holland Farm subdivision. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here to answer questions as well.
Thank you, Elise, for that very informative presentation. Any questions for Elise?
Did we receive any communications from the Hartley family?
I'll let the applicant speak to that. I know they have reached out about the potential for acquiring that property and potentially developing them together, but it's my understanding that that wasn't an option.
So there's the potential that if the Hartleys agree to it, eventually somewhere down the line, that's where we're getting those street stubs that will be, but as of, okay.
Correct, yeah.
How long would something like that take to develop? So you said like the Board of Ed is saying 5 years down the road that maybe there'll be enough middle school placement. What are we looking at in terms of this being built for that?
Well, they would have to go through a similar similar process to the Teeter property.
Right. I'm sorry, I meant the Teeter one. Like how long see this development? What's the time frame for that, as opposed to freeing up or building a brand new school or whatever we're doing to reduce capacity to allow
right
to be.
So so this will go through the normal process of, if rezoning is achieved, then they'll go through the site, development and review process. I don't know if they need to have a green light from Wake County Public Schools.
I don't think they do.
Other than
I was
what's
just
already
wondering.
been.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I was just wondering,
Is this an 18-month process then? Is that typical? Just what's the average or the range?
I don't know what the average time line is.
It's probably a bit longer than that, from the time they submit subdivision plans, get through the construction drawings, put all the infrastructure in, and then start building homes. It's probably about 2 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Till like somebody bodies
Till
are
homes
moving
start
in.
going vertical.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you.
Thank you. That's what thank you.
Yeah, and to reiterate, in order to get that full connection, the Hartley property would have to go through the same process. There's a possibility that they could, sell off just the back half of their property, keep what they have here, and then,
the second street stub, as requested by staff, would be on this side of the stream, and then be able to come around and connect.
So when planners approve, as you know, you gave recommendation for approval of this, but with the affordable housing, there's, that they would prefer the $218,000 in lieu, or the one home that wasn't offered, the $50,000 was offered. Since you went ahead with the recommendation of that, what happens? Does the $50,000 still stand? Like, I'm just curious, like,
Sure.
what happens with that? Does the town of Apex then accept that $50,000? Do they push more for still wanting that one affordable housing home? Do they push for the $218,000? I'm curious.
Sure. So planning staff, we make our recommendation based on kind of the set of criteria that we've gone through, and the process we go through with together with the applicant. If the affordable housing condition, they're offering a portion of that, they may hear from town council that they want to see that full amount, and really it comes to what council says.
I see. Okay, thank you so much.
Any other questions for Elise? Thank you, Elise.
Yeah, thank you.
The applicant would like to speak.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Elise, for the presentation. My name is Neil Ghosh. I'm an attorney at the Morningstar Law Group, and also, Renita, God bless you for being here. I mean, this is a long meeting, so appreciate your involvement. I represent the applicant here, Ardent Building, and we have a representative from there, Corey Schmidt. He actually lives really close to this site, so he's very familiar with the area. And I also want to introduce Patrick Kiernan, who I know you all are very familiar with from Jones Canasa. He'll be presenting this, and I just wanted to say hello, everyone. Thank you. Patrick?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Patrick Kiernan, Jones & Canasa Engineering, 221 North Salem Street. And as Mr. Ghosh said, here representing Ardent Building for this rezoning of 2728 Holland Road. Not to reiterate all the things that Elise presented, I think you did a great job going through everything. Obviously, there's a few things that I anticipate being questions that I'll try to get ahead of a little bit. Starting with the affordability. So I want to talk a little bit about the compatibility with the surrounding area. Neil mentioned that the developer he's nearby. He's actually a resident of Holland Farm, which is kind of unique, where the developer is also one of the neighbors. The home sizes in Holland Farm are what they are. They're, it's a medium density zoning, but they're not minimum sized. They're very consistent with the Bella Casa home sizes. With that said, we were very thoughtful in our laying out of the subdivision to make sure that the home sizes would match the surrounding areas. And it's not just to the south, it's to the west as well. Holland Farm currently has 81 lots in their subdivision, utilizing one access point. Now I know the town's UDO speaks to a max of 50 lots on one access point. Holland Farm was built before that UDO was established. My understanding is that the town's ordinance is based on interconnectivity rather than fire safety. So from a fire safety standpoint, we meet the fire code, which has a max of 100 units on a single access point. With that said, if you were to go from 81 to 100, technically you could get, I'm not sure if it's at 100 or 99, but you could get 18 or 19 homes and still meet all these same, parameters that we're in. That would result in smaller lots that don't fit the character of the surroundings. It would be very easy for my client to agree to one affordable unit, or even two if you were to do 19, if it was 10% of 19, by increasing the density and adding more units. He could inevitably make more money that way. This is not a development to max out profit. This is about responsible growth. As Elise mentioned, this rezoning has no control over what the property owner could end up doing if rezoning was not approved. I think that the interconnectivity aspect of the ordinance would be completely cut at the knees if somebody were to go in there and do an exempt subdivision, eliminating, any future extension of those street stubs to connect Holland Farm to Bella Casa, which, by the way, if and when that ever does happen, would mean that there is a secondary access point, as Elise mentioned, from Holland Farm to, essentially in the future meet the current ordinance, even though it was built before the UDO was established. So that's sort of our angle on the affordability. The pro forma for this project is low to begin with because of the intent of doing this the right way. At our first neighborhood meeting, there was a lot of neighbor opposition to the fact that we were connecting to their road network. We were very adamant, or we were very cognizant of that concern. My client, again, being a resident in that neighborhood, is very familiar with the board and with most of the neighborhood. He held a voluntary neighborhood meeting outside of the typical review process. And there was a lot of back and forth and negotiating on how to make them comfortable with our proposal. And at the second neighborhood meeting, there was no opposition. So obviously I can't speak for them, but I feel like we've done what we needed to do to gain their support, and ultimately they're the ones that would be affected the most by this rezoning. Let me see what else. The Environmental Advisory Board, as Elise mentioned, when we met here, they recommended 7 additional conditions. We actually came to the table with 8 of theirs kind of preloaded, and they, offered 7 additional ones. We were able to give on 4 of those. Those 3 that we were not, I feel very justified in our reasoning. I'm happy to explain those away if need be. But in total, the way I kind of look at it, we provided 12 out of 15 of the environmental conditions. So all in all, I think from what is the correct zoning of this parcel, I think it's hard to argue that medium density is the correct zoning surrounding properties being what they are. Our density, like Elise said, equates more to a low density. It's actually on the lower end of a low density. So from a impact to the surroundings, it's about as minimal as it could be, while still meeting the intent of the land use map, still meeting all the environmental concerns, one of which being committing to 35% RCA if stage graded, and then 40% RCA if mass graded. So, we're increasing on stormwater control, we're increasing our RCA, all the HOA covenants about not restricting clover lawns or dormant leaf piles and those sort of things. We're happy to, oblige on those. So happy to answer any questions you might have. I really feel strongly about this. I know there's a couple things in there that might, from the surface, look, negative, but I think, again, when you really dig into the rezoning for what it is and the cards that we were dealt, this is by far the best thing that could happen with this property. So thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Any questions for the applicant?
Just want to thank your client for going the extra step to speak to the residents, the neighbors, and have their voices heard. I really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Can you speak to the either conversation or lack of conversation to the Hartley property? Oh yeah, there was multiple conversations. So when we had our pre-app meeting, the town, and you can jump in if you'd like to, but mentioned the 50 lot ordinance and what could we do. One of the actual things we did was, at the original pre-app meeting, the layout looked a little bit different, and it did include one stream crossing on our site, as well as setting up the street stub to the south for likely another stream crossing. So that was kind of part A, was what can we do to the layout to at least avoid future environmental concerns. And then the second 2 options that were provided to us were buy the Hartley property, buy half the Hartley property, whatever you need to. Mr. Schmidt made multiple attempts to speak with the Hartleys, spoke with them a couple times, in person a couple times. They waffled a little bit on the possibility. He even went so far as to, offer a phased sort of development that would include allowing us to connect the street stubs, letting him stay in his house, their house, for as long as they need to, potentially even designing a lot in a ranch style home for them,
in the phase 2 of this neighborhood that seemed to get their attention a little bit. Ultimately, their decision was not to sell. Can't.
Not ready.
Yeah, can't force them.
Their decision.
Any other questions for the applicant? Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you.
With that, do we have anyone to speak for public comment? Okay. Here none, we'll close public comment. We'll bring it back to the board for discussion. Now or later.
I mean, I would just make a comment that we're looking at rezonings for some of the most challenging pieces of land in recent months. I'd see Jeff Roach nodding his head in the back. And I think this is just an indication of where we are as a town with, approaching these little infill sites in already developed areas. And it looks consistent, and I'm in favor of this, but gosh, what a dog of a site. It's just, it's tough.
I'll have to agree. Really appreciative of how the applicant has worked with the neighbors, and with the 13 lots with the 1.3 units per acre, that's pretty much equal to low density. Hard to argue. I did have a hang up, with the affordable housing, but in discussing with Bella Casta and the Holland property to the north, I do believe that keeping the neighbors and keeping it consistent and the street connections is also extremely important and something to consider. And ultimately, they will be the ones that have to live with it, will be the neighbors. Any other comments?
Looking at this diagram, I kind of wished there was more connectivity between Holland Farm and the manors to the west. But I understand all the RCA area, that's challenging. And you spoke about, okay, yeah, sorry.
There's a perennial stream to the west with a FEMA floodplain as well, so I think there's a FEMA floodplain. I believe there was, but there would be multiple, probably stream crossings that they would have had to make, so there were, I think, valid reasons that wasn't made prior, and I think that continues further south as well between the phase. Actually, there may be a connection a little bit further south, but I didn't look that far. So anyway, that's the reason, is that perennial stream.
But on the other hand, I'm kind of thankful you're not really touching that area, environmental reasons why. Gosh, this one's a hard too. I think I'm still stuck on the first one. Does Mr. Hartley have any livestock?
Well, and frankly, I think it's important that if the residents and neighbors have concerns that they share, they can do it through email, they can show up, and I just feel like if they haven't, then that is their voice, that they definitely know what's happening.
I mean, if we continue on with we represent them.
That's
but
right.
Patrick's told us that all of the concerns were disappeared with the second one. I feel like those were addressed. So, I mean, that
sounds like
kind of makes sense. I mean, we already voted on the other side of the street last time. I mean, it is a developed area. This is what Holland is turning into.
That's
you
right.
know. So
yes,
yeah.
I hear the motion.
I make a motion to approve.
We
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. All the approve say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All the opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Now we'll move to item 3, June again. Public hearing possible motion regarding rezoning case 25ZZ22 3100 Olive Chapel Road.
Okay, this project is located in the western portion of town. It's on the northeast corner of Transit Trail and Olive Chapel Road. This project site is 4.58 acres and includes, there's a single family home right here, mature trees, and then there's a little stream that's coming across this corner. The site includes a driveway on Olive Chapel Road and one on Transit Trail. And then the site includes there's existing sidewalk, curb and gutter is located on the east side of Transit Trail. And then there's a utility easement along the eastern side of the property. And so looking at the surrounding area, there's single family homes. That's rural residential conditional zoning to the north, a little subdivision, and then along here on the eastern side and south is open space. That is the North Carolina Wildlife Resources open space area. And then to the west, this is a vacant piece of property with mature trees on it. The existing zoning district is Wake County Residential 80W, and a portion, you could just see a little bit of rural residential conditional zoning. The proposed is office and institutional conditional zoning, and then rural residential conditional zoning. The current land use classification is rural density residential, and then that little portion is rural transition residential. If rezoned as proposed, the 2045 land use map would be changed to office employment and a portion of the rural transition residential classification. So the proposed zoning districts, looking at this, they have rural residential conditional zoning. The uses for this section is single family dwelling, accessory apartment, utility minor, park, passive, active, and a greenway. And then the zoning conditions for this portion, they would only apply to any new construction residential. So the existing home shall be exempt from those following conditions. And they just have some design as far as built upon area, maximum height, and then the building setbacks, which is on page 4 of your staff report. All homes shall include solar conduit, and then all garages shall be wired with that 220 volt. And then there's 6 architectural conditions for this area dealing with, garage, have a window and detail and front porch with a 6-foot depth. For the office and institutional conditional zoning right along here, the permitted uses be office and government services, limited retail uses. Those are also on page 4 of your staff report. And then the following uses shall be limited to the operation hours of 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. That's restaurant, newsstand or gift shop, pharmacy, personal service, barber, and beauty shop. And then the percentages for some of the retail, that means that only a certain amount would be allowed. And then we also have, this is for government services use, so these additional conditions. So on here's a 10-foot type B buffer along Olive Chapel Road, and 20-foot type A, 10-foot type A. And then this little star, they are proposing, you can see right here, a privacy fence coming down here to protect that existing residential home. And only emergency service vehicles shall be allowed direct ingress and egress driveway onto Olive Chapel Road, and then the full access driveway shall be required on the transit trail. RCA dedication shall be 20% of the Zone B growth site area. And then we have another set of conditions, and that's for the non-residential uses other than government services. So we were talking about the restaurant, those limited retail and office. 20-foot type E along Olive Chapel Road, 20-foot type B, And then along the northern section would be 20-foot type B. There shall be a limit of 1 access point on Olive Chapel Road, and that point of access shall be a right-in, right-out access at least 250 feet east of Transit Trail and Olive Chapel Road intersection. And then the full access point would be on Transit Trail. RCA dedication shall be 25% of Zone B growth site area. And then this transportation condition would be for all uses. Construct roadway frontage widening on Olive Chapel Road based on rural thoroughfare. Typical section, I said 12-foot travel lanes, 6-foot paved shoulders, and then provide a 5-foot sidewalk for the extent of the project frontage east of Transit Trail. That a variable road frontage widening in addition to the typical section for lane transitions going from 3-lane to 2-lane cross section east of Transit Trail. And that would allow for future addition of an eastbound left turn lane by others on Olive Chapel Road and Transit Trail. And then due to the small area, the project was exempt from the Environmental Advisory Board, and housing staff did not recommend affordable housing condition. Planning staff recommends approval of 25 CZ22 as proposed by the applicant. The 2045 land use map designates the properties as rural density residential and rural transition residential. The applicant proposes a rezoning to office and institutional conditional zoning and rural residential conditional zoning with limited uses and conditions. If the properties are rezoned as proposed, the 2045 land use map will automatically be amended to office employment and rural transition residential classification. And then the proposed rezoning is reasonable in the public interest in that it would provide office, government service, and limited retail uses to serve the existing and proposed residential development in the area. And the rezoning will also allow for that existing single-family home to remain on the lot that is generally consistent with those to the north. The proposed rezoning will provide roadway frontage widening with a sidewalk along Olive Chapel Road. And furthermore, the proposed rezoning includes stricter and architectural conditions than the UDO requires. And with that, if you had any questions, then the applicant is here as well.
I have a question. When you said that if it's approved that the 2045 plan gets updated, does that just affect this parcel, or is that something that will affect the other parcels around? I just was curious.
Just this parcel, but it is taking a little section right here of this parcel. So this little section would change to office and institutional, and then basically they're just going to be doing a recombination and then include this in the zone area A. So it's rural residential conditional zoning, just the same as to the north.
June, can you go back to show us, please, the map so we can see how close this is to the American Tobacco Trail?
Oh, all the way.
Just go back to the aerial.
Oh,
yeah.
Oops.
Okay, so that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay.
And then, of course, this is open space, federal land.
Right. It's just, it's kind of crazy, isn't it, guys, that Olive Chapel is no longer going to be residential, that there's going to be buildings out. I mean, this is, there's the potential for a restaurant. Like, that's...
You asked me 10 years ago, I would have never seen Sweetwater coming.
Yeah.
Look at
True.
it now.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
That's true.
Just as you will. Are you gonna? Okay. Is there? Well, come on up. Sorry, June. I don't want to.
Any other questions? Nope.
Thank you, June.
Hello again. So thanks, June. Appreciate all the work that you've done with this. another kind of unique one, but Will Norton, Jones Canassa Engineering, here on behalf of Joey Ione, JVI Building and Development, who's the property owner. His daughter is actually the and her husband is the owner of the residential property to the north. So just to kind of talk about where this is and how this kind of came about, the fire department here in Apex has been looking for a new site out in this area, and Olive Chapel Road and Transit Trail. Transit Trail is a collector street on the transportation map. Will eventually connect from Olive Chapel all the way through to 64. This road was built to provide access to the neighborhood to the north, and will be continued on here in the next little bit with further development to the north. So once that is complete, it becomes another access from Olive Chapel up to 64. And so this site was kind of picked out, generally speaking, by Steve Adams with town real estate staff and fire chief as, kind of their best spot that they could choose in this area to provide service out here. And so with that, that's the rezoning case has been brought forth with that idea in mind. That government services use fits in the ONICZ, zoning standards, and so that's the target development. There is nothing under contract quite yet, but I think they're working towards that. Last I've heard last week is they're working towards that as well. So this is kind of unique that the existing home would be able to remain where it is, and the current resident is able to stay there and per their desire. It fits what they want, and they've been able to work with that. So this gives the town roughly over 3 acres to work with for their fire station site. And so they've kind of looked at that from engineering standpoint. Jim kind of laid out the land for you, but just kind of this corner provides them their kind of ideal situation for in this area. And so that's been the intent. The other ONICZ uses are, if something falls through, this, as crazy as it may seem, it's probably going to be a pretty busy corner with that corridor of Transit Trail and Olive Chapel being more well-traveled. So this kind of lends to that type of development as well. Obviously, the desire of this would be to be government services for the new fire station, and for all intents and purposes, the fire chief has said, we're going to make this work. So that's kind of where we've landed here. And yeah, happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Quick question, would this be just a fire department, or would it be like a combo that they've done in other spots with police, ambulance, or just fire here?
I believe it's just fire. There hasn't been any other further discussion, kind of like the Apex Barbecue, Kelly Road. This kind of lays out almost similarly, just kind of mirrored. If you imagine that fire station, that passenger cars enter off of Kelly Road to a parking lot area, and then fire has direct access onto Apex Barbecue. So if you imagine that kind of mirrored, fire would have access directly into Olive Chapel, passenger cars and those coming back in would enter off a Transit Trail. And so traffic flow kind of works a little bit similarly, if you can kind of envision that. But to my knowledge, the fire station would be the only government service use, to my knowledge, currently.
Thank you.
Yep.
Will the fire station, this might be too far ahead, face Olive Chapel or Transit Trail?
I believe the intent would be, generally speaking, the front, the garages and the bays would enter, or would have egress out to Olive Chapel Road. Yeah.
So all those lights in front will face out.
They'll go on to Olive Chapel. Yeah. This would be their path of egress.
So the homeowners sold this was their property? The homeowners behind them, or it's not?
Joey's owned it for a while. Okay. Yeah, JVI has owned it. I'm not sure if it's in Joey's or JVI's building and development, but Joey purchased all this from the family out there. The Clements and Western Reserve was done a few years back, and a couple of the parcels along Transit Trail were also developed there for residential. So, but he's owned it ever since that acquisition.
Any other questions for Will? Thank you. Bring back to the board for discussion.
I get it more as a fire station than I did as a restaurant. I can wrap my head around that way better because that just makes sense. I mean, I'm thinking about where the other fire stations are, the combo on Olive Chapel or Kelly and Apex Barbecue. Then you've got the one all the way down New Hill, right? And then you've got the one all the way down Hunter. I mean, it seems like that is probably necessary. Obviously, the fire chief knows what they're doing in terms of knowing what's needed to cover, as Will said, all of those at Weston and whatever's up there, and it's going to go all the way through, right? You said with up to 64.
Yes, which would come out with that 400 unit apartment complex that's been approved, which would go right through there.
I'm really thankful for the neighbors being very supportive of this fire station.
Well, that's the thing is, the only neighbors that are there is the guy that's doing the development.
Yeah, he only, yep.
Joe and his family live out there.
And then there's 3 houses up north to the north of it.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, Joe's daughter lives right behind where the fire station is going. And then that, my opinion is, the neighbors that are going to be impacted are the ones that are, they're the ones that are developing the property.
Yeah.
And unlike, I remember when the Kelly Road fire station went in, the concern was from the neighbors behind them about the noise and whatnot. I'm not going to say for once, but in this case, we're getting ahead of the 8 ball, because anybody that moves out there or develops the property later on, this is an existing circumstance.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a great location, because to the, I guess, east of it where the federal land is, that's never going to be developed. The property across the street is never going to be developed because it's federal land. So, from a noise and light issue, you're harming the fish that are in the pond across the street maybe, but that's about it.
I would also add that the proposed allowed uses on the commercial side are all very neighborhood-oriented uses.
Correct. True, yes.
So, there's nothing intense here. I think, daycare may be the most intense with peak hour of operations, but it's still something that serves the people immediately in the surrounding residential neighborhoods.
That sounded like a motion.
That sounded like a motion, didn't it?
It
I would like to make a motion to approve rezoning case number 25CZ22 as presented by the applicant.
We have a motion from Melissa. We have a second.
I second it. Mary?
Second from Mary. Discussion. All approved, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. We will now move into new business. Item number 1 with Amanda.
And then there's
And Jeff.
Jeff.
Hello, Amanda.
Hello. So I'm presenting these UDO amendments for Bruce tonight. You'll see his name's not on the report, never mind. Okay, we have several amendments proposed for you tonight, and I'll pause after each one to see if we have any questions. So the first amendment is actually a proposal from the Environmental Advisory Board in order to create a definition for native plants and actually also adaptive species, and to clarify that all landscaping, or that landscaping for all town property shall use only native plants listed within the town's design and development manual. And so that is this subsection that's proposed here under the use of native or adaptive plant materials. That basically says what I've summarized, that all new plantings on property owned or dedicated to the town of Apex, including rights-of-way, parks, open space, and other publicly maintained areas, shall utilize native plant materials as defined in the definition section. We'll get to that. And preference is given to species native to North Carolina where practicable, and plant species that shall be consistent with the town of Apex, and that should say design and development manual. We have corrected that. And then final plants selections are subject to review by the TRC to ensure consistency. And so the following non-native plants are exempted from this policy, and that includes non-native turf grass, replacement of existing non-native plant species that have been removed or have died, provided that the replacements are of the same species. So if a development went in and they had a row of a particular tree that's not native or adaptive, and they had to remove one, then they could replant that same species to maintain that landscape design. And then non-native plants are exempt when the primary purpose is for crop cultivation, scientific research, botanical or historical gardens, or plantings for wildlife. And then we've added definitions for adaptive plants or and also for native plants. Do you have any questions on this amendment?
We're gonna approve them individually?
We can, if you have an issue with one of the items, we can separate the vote, but we don't have to take, we can make that decision at the end. Because if you're in agreement with all of them, we can do it in one vote. Okay.
Amanda, can you elaborate on why there are exceptions in certain Florida counties? Are these just the ones in the northernmost part of Florida?
I do not know the answer to that.
It's the same, there's certain planting zones where it has freezes
USDA
or
zones.
too hot, or so those are the ones that don't get too hot.
Got it.
So it has to do with climate zones?
That's what it sounds like,
Yeah.
USDA zones.
Climate zones, yeah.
Bless you.
Any other questions on this one? Okay. All right, the next amendment is to the office, the medical office, medical or dental clinic or office, to add the ability for overnight stays when they're conducted as part of a physician-ordered sleep study. We've had some requests for sleep doctors to be able to come into Apex, and if certain types of sleep apnea studies or other types of conditions require you to be there overnight. And so the current standard does not allow for who are not lodged overnight. So this would allow for that when it's as part of a study, and it does not include inpatient care, routine provision of emergency services, surgical procedures, medical observation exceeding 10 hours. So really getting at that office use for a very narrow purpose.
Would they need to file a CON?
A certificate of need? I don't think, this is just like your standard sleep doctor, like that is in most medical office parks. So this is not a hospital use or anything of that, or a place where there's surgery being conducted. So
It'll be business, right?
It's a doctor's office. It's just that you have to be observed sleeping with, all of the things observing you and when you stop breathing. So
this will allow the 24-hour.
They're not always open for 24 hours, but there is a limited function of the practice that allows someone to come in later in the evening and into the early morning hours. So there could be some that might be 24/7, but it's a very limited operation at that point. All right. The next amendment is to the subdivision design standards for streets rights-of-way in order to prohibit the use of artificial turf within the right-of-way. This is being proposed because artificial turf within the right-of-way may present concerns related to long-term maintenance, durability, stormwater performance, and consistency with town streetscape and landscaping standards. And so the intent is would be natural vegetation within street rights-of-way. And so this states that it shall be prohibited associated with new subdivisions or site plans approved after April 28th, 2026. That's the anticipated approval date by Town Council. And it applies to all areas within the right-of-way, including planting strips, medians, and other landscape and unimproved areas. And it shall not be permitted as a substitute for required landscaping or open space. If there happens to be existing artificial turf within right-of-way applied before that, then this would not require them to remove that. Any questions on that amendment? Okay. Number 4 is an amendment to revise the scope of duties for the Environmental Advisory Board. This was after some concerns expressed by some EAB members and town council members about the role of the EAB when reviewing rezonings. Just to give you a little bit of history, when the EAB was initially established and their under their purview was to review rezonings at the pre-application meeting stage, it was realized that that wasn't very productive because there wasn't enough information known about the rezoning or what kind of other conditions would be offered to make that as productive as it could be. So the process was changed so that it is submitted after application submittal and of course before it comes to you. And so the Environmental Advisory Board has a standard list of environmental conditions that they have published and that they recommend for rezonings to mitigate the environmental impacts of the rezoning. The disconnect that seems to exist is that they don't always know what happens, whether town council approves or denies the rezoning with some or all of the zoning conditions that they have. And then there's a goal of providing more feedback from them on the merits of one part of the rezoning, which is one of the legislative conditions that we got to read tonight, number 5, whether the proposed district minimizes environmental impacts and protection from significant deterioration of water and air resources, wildlife habitat, scenic resources, and other natural resources. So the proposed change would require the EAB to make a recommendation on whether the rezoning meets legislative condition number 5 or not. So not just simply making recommendations for zoning conditions to be added, but also making a recommendation on the rezoning and whether it meets number 5. So their recommendation is not whether the rezoning meets all of the legislative considerations like you do and like town council does. It's limited to number 5.
Amanda, from a timing perspective, when do they meet, make the recommendations? How much time is there? And then you guys get it back, and I assume there's some discussion, revisions before it comes to this board. So is there a potential opportunity for there to be that continued information gap of where they make a recommendation, but then, it's maybe patched up and amended prior to it coming to council and planning board?
I think there is the potential that the EAB will end up reviewing rezonings twice. Okay. Unless an applicant comes to the EAB with a list of environmental conditions that fully meets the EAB's expectations based on the particular rezoning at hand, or unless they're able to add on the spot additional conditions that they are suggesting at that meeting, then I don't know that they're going to be able, or they're going to, so the option is the applicant will present a list, maybe add more if EAB feels like there's more to be added, and then the EAB can make a recommendation that night. If the developer needs time to think about these things in the scope of the whole rezoning, like considering all of the aspects of the rezoning, then they may have to come back another time if they're not ready to offer everything, or else the EAB would be recommending or perhaps making a recommendation that it does not meet legislative condition number 5 in their mind.
EAB meets monthly?
They do meet once a month on the 3rd Thursday of month.
To review
all rezonings.
And can you confirm they're a group of volunteers?
Yes. It's an appointed board, just like this board is, yes.
So if they don't recommend it and it comes before us, it'll just be highlighted that way and we can still approve it, and so can town staff or town council?
Correct, just like we have now. Like right now in your staff reports, we list all of the recommended environmental conditions that are recommended by the EAB, and in the other column we indicate whether the applicant added it, didn't add it, or they added maybe an amended version of what EAB requested. So you're already getting this information now, it's just not coming with an official recommendation of whether that legislative condition is met. So there's a lot of similarity in what is happening, it's just that they're not making a recommendation on the whole, and oftentimes what we see is that the developer is working on which conditions they can add or how they can add them after the meeting occurs. So they're not always offering all of those recommended conditions or suggested conditions at that EAB meeting.
Because they make recommendations only. It's not like they have to follow, right?
Right, just like you're a recommending body. You know, you could recommend denial of a rezoning, and town council could approve it, or vice versa. So ultimately, all decisions are up to town council.
I'm concerned about timing. I think that, and also clarity, as I think that anybody who would come before us would say, please just tell us what it is you want us to do and what are the requirements minimally, and then please do not make me come back 3 or 4 times. Oh, I thought about this. It's a lot of money. It adds anywhere from 20 to 24% to the cost of a home when everyone's concerned about it, because it's time, right? And so I just really want to make sure that whatever we're doing is being cognizant of, we're just clear. This is what we're asking you to do. It's the same thing with the housing. It is not a requirement because it legally cannot be. And it needs to be really clear how they can meet that, and really clear on what happens if they can't meet it. Because it's not fair to put that on other people. We're asking them to do these things, and then we're not clear with them on what they need to do. So I'm not going to be in favor of something that's going to add time and it's going to be confusing. And I can't see at the moment what it is, because I listened to all of that. I asked the questions about housing. I asked the questions about the environmental board. I think clover grass is great. We're growing it in my yard. It's fine. But I get it. It's not acceptable everywhere. So I'm respectful of that. I just really don't want to add time and confusion to people who are coming before us.
To extend that too, because time, and I totally hear you, and I'm on board with all you're putting down. For that official approval or denial, are there like any additional legal requirements that the town is going to have to deal with as part of that, or like similar to like what happened here tonight? We have to go through that process. Are they going to have to go through a similar process if they are like no, deny, or?
No, with their limited scope, it would not be to the level of involvement if there was a recommendation for denial, like you have to go through, because you're looking at every single legislative consideration, and there's requirements in state law for how planning board operates in town council. So no, it would not be the same, and their recommendation should be focused on the environmental impact. That's the intent as it was expressed to us to recommend for.
Yeah, I mean,
Why are we
makes sense. Sorry to step. It's just there's conditions. There's what the UDO requires, and then there's additional conditions. And I guess I just, in terms of timing, not having the additional conditions requests that are above and beyond be a holdup from achieving a positive recommendation. Which again, we do it too. So fully acknowledging that. Just talking. Sorry, Stephen, go ahead.
I was going to say, why are we treating this board any differently than the other boards, like from an affordability standpoint, or other boards that we have? I mean, why?
Well, there's not a housing advisory board any longer, and so there's not another board that a rezoning has to go before. They go to EAB, they come to you, and then they go to town council, and of course, all the while they're working with staff on revisions for. Before it gets to you.
So the issue, this is what Jeff was talking about, right? Like number 4. So, I guess with Stephen,
just get it right in the beginning.
Right.
Before you bring it to us, get it right, or get it close to right. We're talking about kicking it back potentially because of this.
Well, the intent is that they would get their EAB recommendation before it comes to you. So the intent is not that it comes to you, and then if not everything is there, it goes back to the EAB. The intent is that they go to the EAB, get a recommendation from them, and then it goes before it even gets scheduled for public hearing before you.
But do they have to change the thing if it's not recommended?
I think that's just their risk.
That's
right. Like if we recommend denial, it's the applicant's risk if they take it to council or not.
Right. So it may not change. They may take the input from the EAB and say, okay, this is serious. They didn't think. I need to see what I can do. Mm-hmm. They may make no changes. As it was said, it's the applicant's risk, and then it's up to you as the planning board to look at all of the legislative considerations, and same for town council, and weigh everything all together and whether the rezoning should be approved or denied.
So in here it says it's requested by planning staff, but there has been conversation with the advisory board members that they want to have this.
There was a conversation.
Elevated level.
They held I believe, a special environmental advisory board meeting, or at an environmental advisory board meeting, they discussed this, and there is a town council liaison at those meetings.
Are those open to the public?
They are open to the public, yep.
Do we have a liaison?
No, you act completely separate from town council.
Just out of curiosity, has the EAB, their process, have they streamlined the planning department reviews? Like, I mean, I know it's new, but.
The EAB's been around since 2020. I was there for the very first one, and I would say we've refined and made improvements to the process along, and it used to be that they would talk about rezonings for a very long time each, like all the potential environmental things, and I think that has become more streamlined as they've adopted a standardized list of suggested zoning conditions that could be offered. So we've worked out the wording so that it's legally enforceable, and we've done a lot of work, the board's done a lot of work to streamline that and make things go quicker at EAB meetings. So yeah, it's not new as far as rezoning's going before them.
Well, how would they need to get it twice then? That's what I'm trying to understand.
Theoretically, I mean, it could be that the applicant is just like, this is what I've offered, I'm not offering anymore, please make your recommendation, and then it's just that they make the recommendation at that same meeting. But if the applicant really wants that recommendation from them of approval on that legislative condition, then they may say, okay, I want to go back and work on this, I'll come back.
I can promise you that like almost no one is going to want to do that because of time. And so what I'm concerned about is, do they feel like they have to? And it feels to me a little bit like some of the other things that we are suggesting and we can't require. And I'm just concerned about that. If we all say that this is what you have to do to avoid and it's clear, then let's just put it out there and it's clear and it's good. But I'm just concerned about them. I think that they want to be in the good graces of it, and I think they will try, and I'm just worried about them being delayed and setting up a thing unintentionally. I don't think that's the intent, is to drag feet. I don't think that's the intent. My concern is I'm already hearing on other things that are not environmental, where there's a lot of confusion on how do I implement that and what am I supposed to do. And I just want to make sure that we're being thoughtful if we're going to change a process.
Right, and then we went through this tonight. Within all of our legislative considerations, a lot of it's subjective. So
correct.
We're the timing piece of it, I guess. Yes. And I know that you guys do a lot of work in between meetings after you get recommendations and feedback. So that's the other part of it. It's just if they go back to you guys and address a lot of the stuff after maybe they've been recommended denial, but prior to this meeting.
And that could be reflected in staff reports. I mean, that could be reflected. I mean, we just have to work that out as staff, how we represent that. Yeah. So.
Okay.
Well, and I might be wrong for saying this a little bit, but I'll go say it anyway. The concern I've got is that we're giving this authority to a board that has, well, he or she is just a liaison. You got a council member that has an active part in these meetings. Is that correct?
They do not vote.
No, but they can discuss.
Yes.
So that's 20% of the council.
That's a good point.
Is present to
influence.
Potentially, and I'm not saying the current, but down the road, we know of past people on the board that have tried to have a heavy hand sometimes. So.
And just a reminder, rezonings are legislative decisions which applicants can meet and talk with council members before the public hearing and vote in a meeting, outside of a meeting, wherever.
Should we vote on this separately?
Well, I think we'll move on, correct?
We can go ahead and pull this one out if you want to, and you can, if you're ready to, or if you want to just hear the last.
We can hear the last one.
Yeah, let's keep going and hear the rest of
Okay,
it.
we just have one more, and it's fairly straightforward. It's an amendment to the flood damage prevention overlay district standards in order to update the requirements for providing flood data, and this would allow applicants the option to use base flood elevations shown on the North Carolina Emergency Management Non-Regulatory Floodplain Map as an alternative to commissioning a hydraulic study and report. So, and that was requested from our water resources staff. So again, we can vote on them all together. We can pull one or more out and vote on them separately. It's at the will of the planning board.
I feel like we need to pull number 4 out.
Have a request to pull out number 4 of the new business item.
Second, Christie.
We have a second. We have any discussion?
I think we did.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna allow anyone else that maybe, yeah, we did have quite a bit of a discussion.
You don't have to make a motion to
Okay,
separate
great.
them out, so you can just identify which one you want to vote on.
Oh, okay.
I, Sarah, would like to make a motion to approve amendments 1 through 5, exception of 4.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. For Mr. Hastings, all approved say aye.
Aye.
All that oppose? Motion carried. And we have one more motion.
Back number 4.
Before you move on, Amanda, do you feel you have enough information? Council's definitely gonna wanna know all their comments.
I mean, my plan is to go back and watch the video and get that all documented, but what I heard, and you can, this will be important as you're summarizing your vote, is the concern about timing for the process, that it extending the process.
I'm really worried about that.
About the what?
Ambiguity, or potential ambiguity, like, is this required or is it not required? What do I need to do?
And I think Jeff raised a really good point about the influence, and this is not reflective of current council at all, but
Correct.
elections happen, changes happen, so the influence of a single member on a advisory board.
For preventative measures.
Right.
Yeah, the influence part is, we gotta consider that.
So Amanda, do we have to vote down number 4? So do we formally have to vote down number 4?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there has to be a,
That's what I was waiting
yeah,
for.
sorry, there has to be a motion and a second.
Okay.
Wait, do we first have to make a motion to include Mr. Roach's public
Well,
comments?
the initial, did you make a motion?
I've not yet.
Okay,
I
so
did.
whoever makes the motion would need to say whatever you want to say as part of your motion. Proposed changes, things to be added.
Well, I'm not making the motion then. No, I mean, that's a lengthy motion.
You can do it.
But do we know exactly what we want him to say, or is it just right
Well,
now?
that's the problem I've got, is I'm,
Concerns with it, so we
You make
wanna
the
have it
motion?
pulled.
I think it's simple.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Now,
Okay.
if I'm mistaken, y'all let me know,
Yeah,
but I
well,
think
we
it's a motion to strike number 4 from new business and to add Mr. Roach's comments at public comment as a condition. Is that correct? As to be added
As an opinion.
as an opinion?
It's consideration.
Is that the correct
So
word?
the motion would be to recommend denial of this UDO amendment with the minutes from the public forum section and this public hearing discussion to be included with.
Correct.
That sounds great. Good job, Keith.
Well, no,
Yes.
Right.
We do have a planning board report to town council, but it's not gonna be the full.
Right.
Okay.
That way it'll just draw attention to it.
Okay.
Do we have a second on that?
Not yet.
Yep. So
I'll
we-
second that, Mary.
And Mary has a second. All in approval say aye.
Aye.
All that oppose? Motion carried. Keith? Mary, second.
Can I make a last motion?
You can certainly make a motion.
I, Sarah, would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
We have a motion to adjourn. Sarah? Second?
I'll second, Jeff.
Jeff, second. All approve, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.